Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Loose and Reckless. I'm your host, Ray. Um, Today's video, we're going to go ahead and talk about some globalism. In essence, we're going to talk about how globalism in America has been temporarily averted. Um, and I'm going to lay out the case of why and give you some examples of what's going on around the globe, and also point out some things that needs to be shared as far as primarily the World Economic Forum. I don't know how many of you are informed on that or have been around any information or exposed to any information on the World Economic Forum and what it means for you, your family, your kids, and those that you love. There's a lot going on when it boils down to ideologies. Everybody has different perspectives, different ideas, different wants, desires, needs. So to try to wrap one solution into everybody's case is a real hard thing to do. And that's one thing we have to understand. Like, it's not something that you could just snap a finger and all of a sudden we're living in a utopia where everybody loves each other, everybody gets along, everybody sees eye to eye. You know, I believe that that is a fallacy. It's a fallacy to believe um, that we as a species that developed, whether you are religious and you have a spiritual worldview, a religious worldview, or a Darwinistic worldview, on how humans came to be what we are at this present moment, societal, economically, physically, on every level. It doesn't really matter. The perspective, the reality of it is, we got here, and it's all the last 6,000 years of it has been pretty much documented. And there's ways to research this. There's ways to dive into this. And like I said on a previous video, this is what this channel is really about. I am in America. I am an American. I I pride myself on that. I pride myself on being a part of one of the greatest countries ever known to humankind over the last 6,000 years. This country was formed on the ideas of a lot of empires and nations before us. A lot of trial and errors, a lot of failures, a lot of war, a lot of hard fought victories and losses. You know, everything that we know comes on the shoulders of something that predates it, right? For instance, the microwave is something that came after the oven. Now we have a microwave oven, but they had to learn, X-ray and gamma radiation technology to even evolve to the microwave. But without the predecessors of these technologies or these ideas or these concepts, the microwave wouldn't exist, right? So basically, it's a simple analogy, but governments, society. All right, so essentially, governments and societies all evolve just like technology, just like humans, just like our ideas. What's proper to say now might not have been proper to say 100 years ago, or vice versa in different cultures. So cultures evolve, language evolves, everything evolves, right? But off of those evolutions, you learn and you're able to look back. I mean, even in your personal life individually, me, I'm 40 years old. All right. I can look back at who I was when I was 16. I mean, heck, shout out to my mama. My mama, kept videos of me back then. And I look at the person I was then to the person I am now. The person that I was at 25, the person that I was, even in our daily lives, we find evolution, right? And the truth about uh, capitalizing off of that evolution is being honest and looking back at the path of the evolution and and learning from the losses, learning from the failures. If you're not learning from the failures and what went wrong, then you're essentially a hamster on a wheel and you're going to keep just running in a circle. Societies can do the same thing. And as we as human beings have evolved, we tend to keep finding ourselves running to some of the same solutions of things that we feel may be inequities or problems. And this is where, I want to address the World Economic Forum. I'm trying to bring that into the conversation. The World Economic Forum is a large conglomerate of billionaires, billionaire class bankers, multinational corporations, a lot of world leaders, politicians. They all meet in Switzerland once a year for the Davos Convention. All right. And in this Davos Convention, they speak on world economics. They speak on plans that they want to get all the participating countries on board with. And it's vast. It's mostly a one world socialist movement. Okay. There's a lot of problem in that. All right. Now, as I said in the beginning of this video, there's a million and one different perspectives. I know ardent Bernie Sanders supporters personally, right? And we know Bernie Sanders is probably the staple person in America to think about when you think of socialism, right? I know ardent people that stand by these ideas and principles. And I think a lot of them are good people. I think a lot of them are good-natured and good-hearted people. I just feel like a lot of them live, and this is my perspective, I feel like a lot of them live in a reality of oughts, what ought to be, what ought to happen, who ought to do this, or we all ought to have this, and I live in a reality of more of the Thomas Sowell type of perspective of there's trade-offs. All right. So if you don't know who Thomas Sowell is, look him up. You will not be disappointed, especially if you're a Black American in this country. You should know who Thomas Sowell is. All right. Thomas Sowell is probably one of the greatest economists to ever live, in my opinion. He's one of my idols. I'm a numbers guy. Stats and statistics mean a lot to me because it paints a picture. You can't have certain numbers say one thing and then you try to tell me a bunch of stuff about your feelings and make it make sense to me. It just won't work that way. And there's other people that don't live in that reality, and I get that. But for me, that's not how it works. So I like to lay out all my biases up front and let you know where I stand. So when it comes down to the World Economic Forum, I'm gonna illustrate some things that should highlight my complaint. And when I say my complaint, I would say any capitalist nation's complaint. All right. And if you don't like capitalism and you don't think capitalism is a good thing, I would just say deeply look at the numbers globally. Anywhere there's a capitalist society or semi-quasi capitalist society, wherever capitalism is the majority way of the society's way it runs, the people are usually prosperous. The minute that the society inherits idea of communism and socialism, prosperity wanes, and it is on average across the board. And it's not even a contest. I mean, I don't care if you go to looking at those Swedish states up there, you can look at all of that and break down and go into the details of the numbers, and you'll see what I'm saying. I will be doing videos on all of that: capitalism, socialism, communism, what all of that means, how that affects you if you're living in one of those type of societies. But today is more so about globalism, republics, and democracies. All right. So in our history, we've seen many different forms of governance. All right, for each country. You know, you've had monarchies, you've had fiefdoms, you have kingdoms, which are essentially monarchies. You've had republics, of course, in the past, and you have had democracies in the past. I want to pull up something real quick to kind of put some of this stuff in perspective and make my case on what I agree to and see democracies as. And if you know anything about what has been being brainwashed to us in America over the last maybe 20 years, democracy has been a heavily utilized word in this country. I mean, extremely heavy. And it all sounds good and seems good when you hear the word democracy. And then when most people think of democracy, they're just saying, oh, everybody gets a chance to vote. That's great. Everybody gets a chance to vote. Everybody should vote. Everybody has a right to vote. And everybody's say matters, right? Those are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ideas, right? Those are ideas that I think evolved us as a people to a point where we can have prosperous society, where people could have a level of living that is very convenient and nice and wholesome. I mean, without the ideas of democracy, it's easy to say America would have never been formed. But as I stated earlier, technologies and things in society evolve, and things come on top of that. Things evolve past that. So let me pull this up before I make this point. All right. So a man by the name of Socrates, a Greek philosopher, he was born in 470 BC. Right? So 470 BC. He died approximately 399 BC. All right, so we're talking about roughly 2,500 years ago. It's a long time ago, right? Now, mind you, we're not talking about a a life of ignorance. Greece was one of the most powerful empires at the time, most civilized empires at the time. I do the quote unquote civilized because I don't mean to take shots at Greece. I don't mean to take shots at anybody. But you got to realize before Greece, there was Egypt. Before Greece, there was Babylonia, Samaria. So many different dynasties through the Chinese empires that rose and fell. There was so much intellectual experimentation or philosophy on how to rule, how to live, well before Socrates ever came into existence. So this is a man that spent his life investing into the human brain and the thought patterns of humanity. And also what coincides with that is how the hierarchies and the structures of these thought patterns organize themselves into collectives to rule amongst themselves and over themselves. All right. So Socrates, I'm going to share the screen. Let me share this. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. Socrates himself was extremely worried that democratic format would give rise to a demagoguery. Just as he feared majority rule could lead to misinformed voting, he feared that those running for office themselves would lack the wisdom needed to lead and might use their elected position for personal gain. rather than the common good. Socrates was opposed to democracy because it gave demagogues an unwarranted opportunity to rule. So what is he saying with this? What is the message Socrates is trying to impart? Well, if you look back into a lot of the leaders of his time and past, right, there was never checks and balances to the rule. It was always everybody votes for this guy, well, he's leading. And whether that was in districts for their senate in Rome, whether that was the Caesar in Rome, whether that was the high priest in Sumer, democracy is not a new concept as they try to make it seem. A republic is actually newer. And the reason for the idea of republics was to give checks and balance to the democracy. So you say, Ray, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by checks and balances to the democracy? Well, look at it this way. And I'm going to use America as an example, right? California, let's look up the population of California, right? California has 38.9 billion people. So roughly 39 million people live in California. All right. Let's look up the population of, let's say, Virginia, right? Virginia's population has 8.7 million people, right? Now, it's fair to say that the issues that on a day-to-day basis that people that live in Virginia have versus people that live in California have could be drastically totally different. And at the same time, very similar in ways. So there's going to be a lot of things that overlap that they agree upon. And then there's going to be a lot of things that they disagree upon. Just because of their locale, the culture that's been bestowed upon them, that they have been born into or that they are used to living day to day. I mean, there's so many different factors that what issues that matter to Virginians would be totally different than issues that truly matter to Californians. In a total and utter democracy, those issues don't matter. It's just who votes the most. And it would be obvious to see that California has an obvious advantage in a pure democracy if those two states were attached and they had to pick one way of living or one leader or anything of that nature. Virginians would be sorely mistreated in their voice. Their voice wouldn't matter unless they agreed with the Californians anyway. And people must understand that this concept and that turmoil is not nothing new. That's not something that just arrived. Humans have been having simple desires and the same desires for eternity. Maslow, hierarchy of needs. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I'm going to share this with you right now just for conversational purposes to keep moving forward. So this Maslow's hierarchy of needs are the simple things that humankind has been observed over millennia to always have needed, right, to exist, right? So on the bottom rung, we got physiological needs, air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. These are the fundamental bare realities that we live in, that we need, and we don't have a control over these needs. These needs are ingrained into us as human beings. You need sleep, you need air, you need water, you need food, you need shelter, you need clothing. We don't have fur. You need to reproduce, or else we go away. These are undeniable. The second rung, safety needs, personal security, employment, resources, health, prosperity. This is where we're getting out of the natural order of things and into self-actualized realities that we have created for one another and for ourselves. In a society, you need security. If you go back to maybe the 1300s here in America, do you think the Native Americans were not sharpening their bows and their spears to defend themselves from other Native Americans from time to time? Oh, you better believe it. War is nothing new. And it's something that possibly will always happen amongst the humankind, human nature. It's always us versus them. We have this in our internal, we have this, excuse me, we have this ingrained in us. We're tribal creatures. We evolved as tribal creatures. If we don't have something common unifying us, we will go at war with one another. And it's time and time again through society, it has been proven that this is true. All right, and please excuse me. I'm sorry. I can be long-winded, and I appreciate you guys for sticking around as if you're still here. We're already 20 minutes in it. I don't like boring people, but and there's so much more to go over. The third rung, love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Now, can we survive without those things? Yes, we can. But like I said, we evolved as tribal creatures. So we need the friendship. We want the love and intimacy amongst family. All right. The sense of connection. All right. Esteem, respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. Well, in the modern era, especially after the Industrial Revolution, once work became easier, we have more time. And because of the time that we have and the amount of free thought that we have amongst ourselves in these societies that we've created, we can't fall into depression and still be productive. It's very hard to do so. And esteem is very integral into avoiding depression. If we fall into depression, these things can lead us to be sluggish in daily duties, procrastinators, not wanting to do anything because you just have a poor outlook on the world. And in our society that we've created, we need the esteem to maintain the love and belonging, to maintain the safety needs. The self-actualization at the top of the pyramid is the desire to become the most that one can be. Well, if you don't have the esteem, you're not even going to search for that. You're not even going to search for that. So I brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs to illustrate that things in human nature and the desires in human nature, those things in our societies have existed since the ancient Sumerians first started writing about the Anunnaki. All right. And if you don't know about that, I say go look into it. There's a lot of wonderful books on it. Some gets into the dark hole, like Zachariah Sitchin, Ninth Planet, all of those things. Those books will take you in a rabbit hole that, you probably don't want to come out and talk about to anybody. But they're very intriguing if you like reading. So anywho, back to the comment. The evolution of republics from the democracies was the failures that consistently happened in democracies. Okay? The failures that consistently happen in democracies. If you have people that outnumber you, say, for example, the analogy California versus Virginia, and California doesn't care at all about your well-being, about your perceptions as a Virginian, and they just constantly keep telling you shut up and keep outvoting your issues, well, guess what happens? There's turmoil. There's turmoil. There's going to be an uprising. There's going to be violence. You can't shut people up and expect them to stay that way. It just doesn't work that way. Democracies always lead to that. Democracies are a straight path to tyranny. During Socrates' time, democracies were the most common form of governance. Republics were around, but they were just learning how to operate, right? So there was a lot of democratic, misgivings given in there. There's a quote: "Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely." And you need checks and balances in everything to avoid ever monopolizing power in one person's hands or one faction's hands or one government body's hands. You cannot let absolute power be held with anybody, because it's absolutely going to corrupt. Here in America, we have a system. We have a constitutional republic. I don't know why they keep using this democracy term here. Say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, not to the democracy, and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This pledge, okay, this pledge is a direct example of an issue to those who would like this country to become socialist. This is why the Board of Education removed the standard of pledging allegiance to the flag in the first place. You got to understand that the Board of Education is a socialist prop. Does that mean that we don't need a Board of Education? I'm not necessarily saying that. I do say that they failed. They're failing, and they have been failing for like maybe the last 40, 50 years. But it is a socialist organization, so to speak, entity. This is something that society pays for. We all use it and utilize it. To some degree, we benefit. To others, it's detrimental. The number one thing is you're taught to be a cog in the wheel through this system. The Board of Education has more control over your children than you have over your children. The Board of Education spends at least 8 hours a day indoctrinating your children. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic when I say indoctrinate. And what I mean by indoctrinating is the fact that they're telling them what to think rather than how to think. In all cases, it might not be wrong. If I'm teaching a child 1 + 1 = 2, which is an undeniable fact, I can illustrate it on two hands. I can illustrate it in the real world. I can illustrate and prove the concept. I can prove it without a shadow of a doubt. If you're educating something on things that you can prove without a shadow of a doubt, then you're educating. If you are teaching children things that you cannot prove without a shadow of a doubt, but making them believe that it is law, that is indoctrination. And if you go over the curriculum that the Board of Education is mandatory standardizing across the nation, you will see that at least 50 to 60% of all the curriculum is indoctrination. That is a problem. That is a problem. And then we wonder why our society is at the point where we're embracing communism and socialism. All right. This video is going extremely long, and I apologize again. I hope you guys enjoy the time I'm taking to do this. Because I do value my time, and I'm not making any money on this. This is not what I'm even doing it for, truthfully. I'm doing it because, for one, even before the election, and that's the elephant in the room that I haven't addressed, and I should address it, and I will address probably in a later video. I'm still gathering my thoughts on it all. As you know, in my previous video, I proudly declared that yes, I am a Trump supporter. Yes, I did vote for Trump. Yes, I am very happy he won, but I am also sad at what I see like happening. Just watching tons of videos of people losing their minds and not really knowing what this means. The ones that are blatantly and proudly ignorant and think this was all about hating women and abortion. The American people shunned off globalism. And if you don't understand that, that is a problem. And that's why I'm making videos like this now. And this channel will dedicate itself to day by day, slowly and surely, putting out more and more information that people can get a perspective that maybe they never had before. Like I said in previous videos, I'm not one to try to win anybody to the side. I'm not trying to force you into this side. I just want to express this side. I want to express what the views are over here, honestly, with integrity. And that's kind of what led me to all of this in the first place. I said before, I wasn't a fanboy of Trump in 2015 when I told my wife he was going to win. I just had integrity, and I knew what I was watching. I knew what I've seen happening in the world. I knew that there was an avatar for the voiceless that was coming. And for those of you that think the avatar was just white men, that's very ignorant. Ignorant, not being dumb, meaning not knowing. That's very ignorant. It wasn't just white men. The nation was going through a transformation of the wealthiest getting so much wealth, and all of the people getting sucked dry, and the wealth going up from poor to rich. In socialist societies, that's what always happens. Either you're in the in crowd or you're all equally poor. There is no freedom. And with that, I'll go ahead and segue into the World Economic Forum. So let's talk about the World Economic Forum. All right. That is the key central issue. Not central issue, but the key reality of what I'm trying to bring to the table as far as why won't my thing go over there? Okay, there we go. The World Economic Forum is probably one of the biggest enemies in modern society, and the ties go back. And when I say back, they go back to the 1100s, 1200s, possibly even the medieval times. I don't have documents on some of the oldest stuff, but everything that I'm putting together, from the Rothschilds to the George Soroses to the Charles Schwabs to the Rosa Brooks in America, all these people that you may or may not know about are very devious and have a lot of backing globally and are doing very mischievous stuff that they believe they're divinely rightful to do so. They believe that they're doing good. They don't think what they're doing is bad. All right. So I want to elaborate that. For the most part, it's questionable with George Soros. And we're going to get into all of that. But today we're going to talk about the World Economic Forum. I promise you I will elaborate and get all these things out, but it's so much. And there's just not enough time in one video. So what I'm doing is weekly, I'm trying to decide on what topics to touch, where to go, how to put this tree together and not bore you. essentially, and also not waste a whole bunch of my time, right? All right. So this video here, a quick segment, is a quick video. Sorry for the sound just then. I was trying to get it ready. That is a post from November 18th, 2016. Okay. I just want you to see that this is not a new organization or anything like that. And it's older than this, but I want you to see what they were trying to elaborate to you. This is a tweet they put out on Twitter in 2018. Let's watch this. All right. Everybody talks about this Project 2025, but I've never heard anybody talk about this Project 2030. And for me, this is scarier than that. How dare you tell me, first off, how dare you tell an American, the country that was founded on, fuck you, get out of my pocket, you're not even over here, no taxation without representation, land of the free, being able to buy property, that's a cornerstone in our society. Being able to find economic freedom and retirement, being able to move up and down the social and economic ladders as you please, which I have done gracefully. I mean, anybody that knows me will tell you, they've watched me, they've seen me fall to nothing, seen me rise to glory, seen me fall to nothing again, and rise to glory again like a phoenix from the ash. People that know me know exactly what I'm talking about and know that I have no reason to fabricate. But to fix y'all lips from a country far off in Europe, telling the world that you will own nothing and you will be happy. This is how our world could change by 2030. It's so disrespectful. So disrespectful. But let's watch this. 8 predictions for the world in 2030. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Look at this jackass smiling. I don't know if he knew that's what they put on his face, but that's some nonsense. Why would I be this happy if I own nothing and be happy? The thing about it is we live in a society right now where I have seen countless young individuals aged between 18 and 25 to 30 right now talking about they don't never want to own a home. They don't never want to own property. It's too hard to maintain. It's too hard for this. It's too hard for that. They want to rent for the rest of their life so other people's problems get. That's how they're getting you. That's how they're doing this. That's how they're getting away with this. Because we have to vote it in. They can't force it on us. They can't force it on us. We have to vote it in. Once again, I'm proud of all you that went out there and voted against this. I'm proud of all you that were informed to a degree and voted against this. Even if you didn't know all of this level of it, but you realized something wasn't up, you realized that there was something very off about how things transpired and it has been transpiring since Obama. I am proud of you and I thank you. I honor you. You have helped make a future for our kids in this country with the possibilities and the opportunities that we have. I truly appreciate this. All right. What's number 2? Whatever you want, you'll rent and it'll be delivered by drone. So no longer buying stuff and own it. There's a lot of people that are cool with that. They think about that and it makes sense. This was published in 2016. They're flying drones around right now from Walmart trying to make deliveries. Is this too far-fetched? Is it? We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get deep into it. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. Why? Do you guys remember when Obama? Because I've been paying attention for a while. Do you guys remember when Obama said we are a nation in decline? All right, you know, I'm gonna pull up receipts on that. All right, so I ain't even gonna talk too heavily on it because I want to pull up the receipts and show you. That's not what I got scheduled for today, but I'll dive into it. But just think back. A lot of y'all will remember this. We are a nation in decline, and it's our duty to manage the decline. Remember that. And then when Trump ran, what did he say? When Trump was talking about bringing back all these jobs, and he mocked him. He said, well, "What magic stick will you have?" Ho ho ho! Lo and behold, just last week, a couple weeks ago, before the election of 2024, what did he say? That wasn't your economy. That was my economy. But you said we had to manage the decline in 2012. What are you saying? What are you saying, Obama? Anywho, the U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. How disrespectful is that? How disrespectful is that, man? Why do we hate ourselves so much? You know how many people in this country right now would see that and agree, like, oh, yeah, America's such an atrocious place. And this is that. This is the single place that millions of people around the globe aspire to come to. Reagan said this was a shining light on the hill. And it is. Right now, as we speak, you got 250,000. That's another video. Right now, as we speak, I'm documenting it. There's 250,000 migrants at our southern border trying to force their way in before Trump is in office. We're going to get into all of that. I'm going to cover all of it. Just stick here, like that like button, like you've been here before. Smash that like button like you've been here before. That's all I need. And share it. We have to share this stuff. If you like what you're watching, please share this stuff. Okay? Don't let my time go to waste. Help me. Help you. Help us. The U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. Foolishness. A handful of countries will dominate. What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, it's just peaches and rainbows, unity. No. Human nature is competition. Competition brings innovation. Innovation brings prosperity. It's always been that way. If you have a board of officials that are deciding all the decisions globally, you're going to have a lot of unhappy, unhealthy, and unprosperous people when you put everybody in one box with no competition. It's just a reality. Sorry if you feel otherwise. Like Vivek told that girl in the last video I did. Yeah, you're just a voter for that, and that's fine. That's fine. Right. Won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs. We'll print new ones instead. You'll eat much less meat, and occasionally treat, not a staple, good environment. We have to do a better job. Will have to be is to help. You can be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists have worked out how to help turn it value. World Economic Forum. All right. Now, let me explain something to you. These individuals may have the absolute best intentions. When it comes to climate change, I understand, but I also think that humans are self-centered and we think everything revolves around us. I will have those topics for a later date, but I think they're very manipulative. I think there are a lot of arguments in bad faith, and I believe there's more to it than what's been given. And we're going to dive into all of that. We're going to dive into all of that. But it does sound like money grabs to me. And I will explain my position in a later date about that. Right now, what I'm talking about is freedom. Okay? Freedom. Freedom to choose how you're going to live your life and run your life. Let's see. So let's talk about this here. I'm going to end this video. It's a long video.
So you think you know Wix, but do you really?
It's a long video. But I want you to have a second and please give this man, how long is the video? 26 minutes. If you made it to this video, please give this man 26 minutes of your time. I beg of you. Last year, the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, he addressed the World Economic Forum, the place where all these socialist billionaires and multinational companies come together to impose their will on the Western world. His first time making a major international speech, he came to the World Economic Forum, and this is what he told these people. Okay? This is what he told these people. I want you to pay attention and really enjoy someone speaking about freedom to people who don't want the world to have freedom. Okay? And I will get back with you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's for me a great great honor to welcome Javier Milei. As you know, he's the freely elected president of Argentina, and it's actually your first trip to a foreign country after you have been elected. First, congratulations for your election, and congratulations also to your sister, who managed your...
Good afternoon.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Hoy estoy acá
Today, I'm here
para decirles que Occidente
to tell you that the Western world is in danger.
está en peligro porque
And it
aquellos que
is
supuestamente
endangered
deben defender
because
los valores
those
de
who are
Occidente
supposed to have to
se
defend the
encuentran
values of the
cooptados
West
por una visión del
are
mundo
co-opted by a
inexorablemente conduce al
vision of the
fascismo,
world that
en
inexorably
consecuencia,
leads to
a la
socialism
pobreza.
and thereby to poverty.
Lamentablemente,
Unfortunately,
en las últimas
in
décadas,
recent decades,
motivados por algunos deseos
motivated
interesantes de
by
querer ayudar
some
al prójimo,
well-meaning individuals willing to help others and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points. When we adopted the model of freedom back in 1860, in 35 years we became a leading world power. And when we embraced collectivism over the course of the last 100 years, we saw how our citizens started to become systematically impoverished, and we dropped to spot number 140 globally. But before having the discussion, it would first be important for us to take a look at the data that demonstrate why free enterprise capitalism is not just the only possible system to end world poverty, but also that it's the only morally desirable system to achieve this. If we look at the history of economic progress, we can see how between the year 0 and the year 1800 approximately, world per capita GDP practically remained constant throughout the whole reference period. If you look at a graph of the evolution of economic growth throughout the history of humanity, you would see a hockey stick graph, an exponential function that remained constant for 90% of the time and which was exponentially triggered starting in the 19th century. The only exception to this history of stagnation was in the late 15th century with the discovery of the American continent. But for this exception, throughout the whole period between the year 0 and the year 1800, global per capita GDP stagnated. Now, it's not just that capitalism brought about an explosion in wealth from the moment it was adopted as an economic system. But also, if you look at the data, what you will see is that growth continues to accelerate throughout the whole period. And throughout the whole period between the year 0 and the year 1800, the per capita GDP growth rate remained stable at around 0.02% annually, so almost no growth. Starting in the 19th century, with the Industrial Revolution, the compound annual growth rate was 0.66%. And at that rate, in order to double per capita GDP, you would need some 107 years. Now, if you look at the period between the year 1900 and the year 1950, the growth rate accelerated to 1.66% a year. So you no longer need 107 years to double per capita GDP, but 66. And if you take the period between 1950 and the year 2000, you will see that the growth rate was 2.1%. Again, the CAGR, which would mean then in only 33 years, we could double the world's per capita GDP. This trend, far from stopping, remains well alive today. If we take the period between the year 2000 and 2023, the growth rate again accelerated to 3% a year, which means that we could double world per capita GDP in just 23 years. That said, when you look at per capita GDP since the year 1800 and until today, what you will see is that after the Industrial Revolution, global per capita GDP multiplied by over 15 times, which meant a boom in growth that lifted 90% of the global population out of poverty. We should remember that by the year 1800, about 95% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty, and that figure dropped to 5% by the year 2020, prior to the pandemic. The conclusion is obvious. Far from being the cause of our problems, free trade capitalism as an economic system is the only instrument we have to end hunger, poverty, and extreme poverty across our planet. The empirical evidence is unquestionable. Therefore, since there is no doubt that free enterprise capitalism is superior in productive terms, the left also has attacked capitalism, alleging matters of morality, saying, that's what the detractors claim, that it's unjust. They say that capitalism is evil because it's individualistic and that collectivism is good because it's altruistic. of course, with the money of others. So they therefore advocate for social justice. But this concept, which in the developed world became fashionable in recent times, in my country has been a constant in political discourse for over 80 years. The problem is that social justice is not just, and it doesn't contribute either to the general well-being. Quite on the contrary, it's an intrinsically unfair idea because it's violent. It's unjust because the state is financed through tax, and taxes are collected coercively. Or can any one of us say that they voluntarily pay taxes, which means that the state is financed through coercion, and that the higher the tax burden, the higher the coercion, and the lower the freedom. Those who promote social justice, the advocates, start with the idea that the whole economy is a pie that can be shared differently. But that pie is not a given. It's wealth that is generated in what Israel Kirzner, for instance, calls a market discovery process. If the goods or services offered by a business are not wanted, the business will fail unless it adapts to what the market is demanding. If they make a good quality product at an attractive price, they will do well and produce more. So the market is a discovery process in which the capitalists will find the right path as they move forward. But if the state punishes capitalists when they're successful and gets in the way of the discovery process, they will destroy their incentives, and the consequence is that they will produce less, the pie will be smaller, and this will harm society as a whole. Collectivism, by inhibiting these discovery processes and hindering the appropriation of discoveries, ends up binding the hands of entrepreneurs and prevents them from offering better goods and services at a better price. So how come that academia, international organizations, economic theory, and politics demonize an economic system that has not only lifted out of extreme poverty 90% of the world's population, but has continued to do this faster and faster? And this is morally superior and just. Thanks to free trade capitalism, it is to be seen that the world is now living its best moment. Never in all of mankind's or humanity's history has there been a time of more prosperity than today. This is true for all. The world of today has more freedom, is rich, is more peaceful and prosperous. And this is particularly true for countries that have more freedom and have economic freedom and respect the property rights of individuals, because countries that have more freedom are 12 times richer than those that are repressed, and the lowest decile in terms of distribution in free countries are better off than 90% of the population of repressed countries, and poverty is 25 times
The numbers don't
lower.
lie.
And extreme poverty is 50 times lower. And citizens in free countries live 25% longer than citizens in repressed countries. Now, what is it that we mean when we talk about libertarianism? And let me quote the words of the greatest authority on freedom in Argentina, Professor Alberto Venegas Lich Jr., who says that libertarianism is the unrestricted respect for the life project of others, based on the principle of non-aggression, in defense of the right to life, liberty, and property. Its fundamental institutions being private property, markets free from state intervention, free competition, the division of labor, and social cooperation, as part of which success is achieved only by serving others with goods of better quality or at a better price. In other words, capitalists, successful business people are social benefactors who, far from appropriating the wealth of others, contribute to the general well-being. Ultimately, a successful entrepreneur is a hero. And this is the model that we are advocating for the Argentina of the future, a model based on the fundamental principles of libertarianism, the defense of life, of freedom, and of property. Now, if free enterprise capitalism and economic freedom have proven to be extraordinary instruments to end poverty in the world, and we are now at the best time in the history of humanity, it is worth asking why I say that the West is endangered. And I say this precisely because in those of our countries that should defend the values of the free market, private property, and the other institutions of libertarianism, sectors of the political and economic establishment, some due to mistakes in the theoretical framework and others due to a greed for power are undermining the foundations of libertarianism, opening up the doors to socialism and potentially condemning us to poverty, misery and stagnation. It should never be forgotten that socialism is always and everywhere an impoverishing phenomenon that has failed in all countries where it's been tried out. It's been a failure economically, socially, culturally, and it also murdered over 100 million human beings. The essential problem in the West today is not just that we need to come to grips with those who, even after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the overwhelming empirical evidence, continue to advocate for impoverishing socialism. But there's also our own leaders, thinkers, and academics who, relying on a misguided theoretical framework, undermine the fundamentals of the system that has given us the greatest expansion of wealth and prosperity in our history. The theoretical framework to which I refer is that of neoclassical economic theory, which designs a set of instruments that unwillingly or without meaning to ends up serving the intervention by the state, socialism, and social degradation. The problem with neoclassicals is that the model they fell in love with does not map reality, so they put down their mistakes to supposed market failures rather than reviewing the premises of the model. On the pretext of a supposed market failure, regulations are introduced which only create distortions in the price system, prevent economic calculus, and therefore also prevent saving, investment, and growth. This problem lies mainly in the fact that not even supposedly libertarian economists understand what the market is, because if they did understand, it would quickly be seen that it's impossible for there to be something along the lines of market failures. The market is not a mere graph describing a curve of supply and demand. The market is a mechanism for social cooperation where you voluntarily exchange ownership rights. Therefore, based on this definition, talking about a market failure is an oxymoron. There are no market failures. If transactions are voluntary, the only context in which there can be a market failure is if there is coercion. And the only one that is able to coerce generally is the state, which holds a monopoly on violence. Consequently, if someone considers that there is a market failure, I would suggest that they check to see if the state intervention involved. And if they find that that's not the case, I would suggest that they check again, because obviously there's a mistake. Market failures do not exist. An example of these so-called market failures described by the neoclassicals are the concentrated structures of the economy. However, without increasing returns to scale functions, whose counterpart are the concentrated structures of the economy, we couldn't possibly explain economic growth since the year 1800 until today. Isn't this interesting? Since the year 1800 onwards, with population multiplying by 8 or 9 times, per capita GDP grown by over 15 times. So there are growing returns, which took extreme poverty from 95% to 5%. However, the presence of growing returns involves concentrated structures, what we would call a monopoly. How come then that something that has generated so much well-being for the neoclassical theory is a market failure? Neoclassical economists think outside of the box. When the model fails, you shouldn't get angry with reality, but rather with the model and change it. The dilemma faced by the neoclassical model is that they say they wish to perfect the functioning of the market by attacking what they consider to be failures. But in so doing, they don't just open up the doors to socialism, but also go against economic growth. An example, regulating monopolies, destroying their profits and destroying growing returns automatically would destroy economic growth. In other words, whenever you want to correct a supposed market failure inexorably, as a result of not knowing what the market is, or as a result of having fallen in love with a failed model, you are opening up the doors to socialism and condemning people to poverty. However, faced with the theoretical demonstration that state intervention is harmful and the empirical evidence that it has failed couldn't have been otherwise, the solution to be proposed by collectivists is not greater freedom, but rather greater regulation, which creates a downward spiral of regulations until we're all poorer and the life of all of us depends on a bureaucrat sitting in a luxury office. Given the dismal failure of collectivist models and the undeniable advances in the free world, socialists were forced to change their agenda. They left behind the class struggle based on the economic system and replaced this with other supposed social conflicts which are just as harmful to life as a community and to economic growth. The first of these new battles was the ridiculous and unnatural fight between man and woman. Libertarianism already provides for equality of these sexes. The cornerstone of our creed says that all humans are created equal, that we all have the same unalienable rights granted by the Creator, including life, freedom, and ownership. All that this radical feminism agenda has led to is greater state intervention to hinder the economic process, giving a job to bureaucrats who have not contributed anything to society. Examples, ministries of women or international organizations devoted to promoting this agenda. Another conflict presented by socialists is that of humans against nature, claiming that we human beings damage the planet, which should be protected at all costs, even going as far as advocating for population control mechanisms or the bloody abortion agenda. Unfortunately, these harmful ideas have taken a strong hold in our society. Neo-Marxists have managed to co-opt the common sense of the Western world, and this they have achieved by appropriating the media, culture, universities, and also international organizations. The latter case is the most serious one, probably, because these are institutions that have enormous influence on political and economic decisions of the countries that make up the multilateral organizations. Fortunately, there's more and more of us who are daring to make our voices heard, because we see that if we don't truly and decisively fight against these ideas, the only possible fate is for us to have increasing levels of state regulation, socialism, poverty, and less freedom, and therefore will be having worse standards of living. The West has unfortunately already started to go along this path. I know to many it may sound ridiculous to suggest that the West has turned to socialism, but it's only ridiculous if you only limit yourself to the traditional economic definition of socialism, which says that it's an economic system where the state owns the means of production. This definition, in my view, should be updated in the light of current circumstances. Today, states don't need to directly control the means of production to control every aspect of the lives of individuals. With tools such as printing money, debt, subsidies, controlling the interest rate, price controls, and regulations to correct the so-called market failures, they can control the lives and fates of millions of individuals. This is how we come to the point where, by using different names or guises, a good deal of the generally accepted political offers in most Western countries are collectivist variants, whether they proclaim to be openly communists, fascists, Nazis, socialists, social democrats, national socialists, Democrat Christians, Christian Democrats, neo-Keynesians, progressive, populist, nationalists, or globalists. At bottom, there are no major differences. They all say that the state should steer all aspects of the lives of individuals. They all defend a model contrary to that one which led humanity to the most spectacular progress in its history. We have come here today to invite the rest of the countries in the Western world to get back on the path of prosperity, economic freedom, limited government, and unlimited respect for private property are essential elements for economic growth. And the impoverishment produced by collectivism is no fantasy, nor is it an inescapable fate. But it's a reality that we Argentines know very well. We have lived through this, we have been through this, because as I said earlier, ever since we decided to abandon the model of freedom that had made us rich, we have been caught up in a downward spiral, as part of which we are poorer and poorer day by day. So this is something we have lived through, and we are here to warn you about what can happen if the countries in the Western world that became rich through the model of freedom stay on this path of servitude. The case of Argentina is an empirical demonstration that no matter how rich you may be, or how much you may have in terms of natural resources, or how skilled your population may be, or educated, or how many bars of gold you may have in the central bank, if measures are adopted that hinder the free functioning of markets, free competition, free price systems, if you hinder trade, if you attack private property, the only possible fate is poverty. Therefore, in concluding, I would like to leave a message for all business people here and for those who are not here in person but are following from around the world. Do not be intimidated either by the political class or by parasites who live off the state. Do not surrender to a political class that only wants to stay in power and retain its privileges. You are social benefactors, you're heroes, you're the creators of the most extraordinary period of prosperity we've ever seen. Let no one tell you that your ambition is immoral. If you make money, it's because you offer a better product at a better price, thereby contributing to general well-being. Do not surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem itself. You are the true protagonists of this story. And rest assured that as from today, Argentina is your staunch, unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. Damn it.
Long live freedom, damn it. On the global stage. I want you to understand, you know, I know most of you watching this don't have the background in understanding what the World Economic Forum even is, right? Like, I don't want you to think that, you know, I'm trying to overshadow whatever the World Economic Forum's goods may be, which there probably are some. But when you start off as a premise that the world will own, the world's citizens will own nothing and be happy about that, and then your goal is to find new ways to tax world governments due to carbon emissions and extra bureaucracy that they should all implement in front of this. You're heading down a path of totalitarianism that is like the likes of which have never been seen before. And I 100% salute this president, Milei from Argentina, going into the belly of the beast and telling all of these socialists and communists over the world, long live freedom, damn it. And with that, I'll end this long-ass recording. I know that it's been kind of tedious, and I appreciate you guys for all of you that stuck with it and made it to the end. If you like this video, please share this video. If this information was informative to you, it may be informative to other people. So like and share, and also subscribe. Thank you again for watching Loose and Reckless. I am your host, Ray. Hopefully we'll see you again. Next topic will be capitalism versus socialism on the heels of this. And we're going to start that. And like I told you, I will be getting into the players that's moving around all over all over the world and pointing some of these guys out and what exactly they stand on and why we should know and not go to sleep and allow and make sure your fellow citizens understand what's coming and what's happening. Once again, congratulations on all you guys who went out there and voted for Trump. And I'm sorry to all of you that are mad that Kamala didn't win. And I just want you guys to understand that y'all eyes are not on the prize. And hopefully information like this can help you start seeing that it wasn't about women. It's about economics and global issues. There's wars going on. There's oppression on its way here. And we as a nation, we as the men of this nation need to protect the women of this nation, whether they like it or not. All right. Love you guys. See you on the next one.